Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Maine-ly Animals on LRTV. I'm your host, Bobby Silcott, and today our guest is the founder of Maine Friends of Animals, Robert Fisk Jr. Robert, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. We've talked over the last several months here, and due to some circumstances, finally here we are here today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So some of our viewers out there, they hear Maine Friends of Animals. If you're in the animal welfare world in the state of Maine, they've probably heard of your organization. But for the folks out there that may be watching that haven't, could you take us back maybe to the 25 years you've been around?
Okay. We can start with that.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I was a former legislator, and often when you go up to Augusta, you have certain issues that are important to you. Mine was the environment, and I'm a small businessman, and also reforms, campaign government reforms, but I also was into animal welfare. So anyways, there were plenty of people up there that were advocating for reforms and environment and small business, but nobody was really doing it for animals. And so through osmosis or default, I became the resident expert in Augusta on animal issues because it was a void there. And in doing so, I realized that there was no cohesive entity or group that was putting together a vehicle so that animal issues could be affected, and i.e. legislation. So that's pretty much the genesis of Maine Friends of Animals, and when I was serving the legislature 25 years ago.
Wow. Does it seem like 25 years ago? Or?
Yes.
It does? Yeah.
A lot of water under the bridge.
Yeah, and here you are, I was on the website earlier. Now you've got 9 boards of directors, staff member, 1,500 members strong with Maine Friends of Animals. You're closing in on 6,000 Facebook followers, and an excellent website, by the way. So
Thank
here
you.
you are 25 years later, and look what's happened.
Yeah, it's been a journey. When you're in the early stages of a movement, things typically don't go your way as often as you'd like them to. So you have to stay strong and keep fighting the fight. And eventually, with time, as we have, we've met with success.
Right, and here we are, lo and behold, for the second year in a row, the state of Maine has been awarded the first place by the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Just something really to be proud of. As an animal control officer, my opinion is the laws aren't perfect, but we're gaining on them every day. And to get that ranking is really important. What does that mean to you all these years later?
It means a lot because this goes back 20, 25 years ago, and a lot of people, besides Maine Friends of Animals, that were engaged in animal welfare. And it's so the laws were fairly good, have been for a while. Also, the 2 previous animal welfare directors strengthened them, and through rulemaking and other things. So they've always become pretty good. But in the last 4 years, we passed 4 pieces of legislation that Animal Legal Defense Fund said put us into number 1. The first one was 3, actually, in 2019. One was a pet shop bill, which means that now pet shops in Maine cannot sell puppies and kittens from, these factory farms, that we see all over the Midwest and so forth. 2 of the remaining pet shops have been grandfathered, but when they're done, the state will be free of having any shops that can sell dogs and cats in. And we're hoping to gravitate them into, working with shelters and, and see if they can bring those dogs into the mix a little bit more. Then we passed what was called post-conviction possession of animals. Someone who's been had an animal cruelty case filed against them, and they're not supposed to have animals, and they do. We made it a criminal offense to make it more of a deterrent. The third bill we passed was the Frankie's Law, which is second in the nation. And I wanted to, I'll just go with that. Frankie's Law was second nation. We went down to Connecticut to see the original law, and we've been working very hard on that the last couple of years, and of course COVID hasn't helped us any at all. So we're just about ready to launch that program. I'm very excited about it. as most people know who followed it, Frankie was a pug up in Winter Haven that was brutally mutilated and thrown in the river and so forth. There was such public outcry that the bill was named after it. But what it is a courtroom animal advocate program in which attorneys can volunteer their time, or Maine School of Law students can volunteer their time in helping adjudicate and litigate animal cruelty cases, because as you know, animal cruelty cases are often in the bottom of the totem pole, and they get left behind and either pled out or not even taken up sometimes. And also the courts now are overwhelmed, as you know. So this is a way to mitigate it, because there's people that are giving free services to help litigate these cases. And it's in the best interest of justice for the animal, make sure there's no more of these, but it helps the court, helps the prosecutor, helps the law student, so it's a win-win situation.
Right.
So we're very excited about that. That was our third piece, and then 2021, we passed our pet custody bill, and that,
Right.
I'm really happy about that bill for a couple of reasons. One is that it's only, I think, fourth in the nation as well, and other states are doing it. But it gives the judge real criteria if there's a debate in a divorce over an animal and where it should go in the possession of it. So it gives the judge criteria to determine where that animal, the well-being of the animal is determined, not for the suitors, but for the well-being of the animal. And, animals are legally property, so they're no more than a kitchen table set or a lawnmower. And as we know, they're more than that, and what they mean to people and their families. So there's got to be some area where it's above being just an entity, an inanimate entity. But in all cases, it's leading towards us getting to people think more on those lines, that the animals have to be treated differently and so forth. So anyways, kind of long-winded here, but when those four bills passed, that put us in 2020, and then 2021 is number one in the nation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For our animal welfare laws. So that's due to credit to a lot of people who've worked very hard in 25 years to get us where we are.
Right. Yeah. And another one, I just go back in time. This is something that means a lot to me as an animal control officer, and seeing this firsthand at times, is the chain for life.
Yes.
And how that happened. That's just a huge impact to me personally. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because dogs chained for life are, as you probably imagine, as dogs are left out 24/7 all the time. Especially during the winter in northern Maine, that can mean death, and has. So that was actually, aside some wildlife issues, dogs chained for life was where we actually cut our teeth on when we first were formed. And we passed legislation, which was first in the nation also, in which we set up criteria. If you're going to have the animal out there 24/7, there's certain criteria within the chain, the dog house itself, and so forth. And
right.
We wanted actually some time off the chain. The dog could socialize or come inside or whatever. We didn't get that, but in any case, if someone now sees a dog that has no food, the water's frozen, and is tangled up and so forth, that's grounds to call the animal control officer and say this dog is under circumstances they shouldn't be under.
Right. Yeah, and I would just really emphasize that, encourage anyone. If you see a situation like that, reach out to your animal control officer.
Yes.
And that's the place to start. Locally, let them come out and look. Because as you say, there's so many things that happen if a dog is tethered for more than 12 hours that take effect, that we can use to protect that animal.
Yeah.
And if you've seen one out there like that,
and unfortunately, often it's just a response to the physical abuse the animal's having, but the mental abuse that animal's going on with they're a pack animal, so let alone not having, with other dogs and so forth, they don't have any human interaction, which
right.
they obviously need.
Right, yeah, and the acts of, and I've seen it personally, if an animal's chained up and kids are going by on skateboards all the time, or cars or scooter, anything like that, and it stimulates them, it really begins to trigger them. It causes anxiety for them,
Sure.
and can also
And
make
then
them
they have personality disorders, and then they're hard
all kinds.
to adopt and everything else. Yeah.
So I would say, and that happened, was that in 2006-ish?
7.
Seven.
2007, we did our Dogs Chained for Life legislation.
Well, I would say how many animals that's affected since then. That's huge.
Yeah, we don't, I wish you could quantify it, but between what you do as animal control officers, which is the most important, the animal welfare department, and what we try to do to follow up on these cases, because if they don't, they're not handled the way they should be, we try to follow up to make sure they are.
Right, yeah. So some folks will be saying, oh, you talked about the legislation that was passed. Again, congratulations to everybody that helped get that done. But for the average person sitting home, I know I talk to folks that occasionally, say, well, just do it. Just do it. Well, legislation could, and I don't want to, we could talk for hours on that, but could you just briefly talk about how it begins and how that actually comes to being signed into law?
Well, yeah, we could. It's a long story, but you make such a good point. Just do it, because animal cruelty issues, are very visceral, and people respond to them and they say that you can't have this. We got to change it. And one of the advantages of having been a former legislator is that I know that change is mostly incremental. Once in a while you get a big breakthrough, but it's often, we've had bills that first time in the legislature, it didn't even get out of committee. It means it was voted out 13-zip.
Yeah.
Next time we brought it in, it was 50-50, and it kind of went to the floor, but nothing happened. Third time we passed it. So it was educating the media, the legislators more so, and they finally, oh yeah, I remember that bill, and then a few more get on board, and slowly. So all our bills, and so many of our bills are minor in nature, but they're not, because they've kind of kicked the door open to different things now that it's been legally done. We've passed 10 different pieces of legislation, 10 or 11, that have affected companion animals, mostly dogs, but that goes for everything from making animal cruelty a felony offense to setting up guidelines for dogs in the back of pickup trucks. So none of it's necessarily too sexy, but you make those little inroads, and sooner or later, you've through small pieces of legislation and through incremental work, you get things done. And the longer we're into it, the easier it is now, because any of the things you try to do now, we tried to do 25 years ago, I mean, it wouldn't happen. But it's taken time, and here we are.
Right. Just through the efforts of so many people, they said, just keep plugging away, get on board with this. Some of the groups I was reading again on your website earlier, and you work with a lot of different groups throughout Maine. And we're fortunate, I guess, I would back up and say, we're very fortunate to live in the part of the country that we do when it comes to animal welfare.
Yes, we are.
I couldn't do what I do down south, probably. I've never been able to, I don't want to be exposed to that. But up here with some of the organizations, do you want to mention any of the organizations, how what type of role they play in that? If there's folks out there watching that may want to, if that's a way they can plug into this to help you, or?
Well, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of groups out there, small groups that do their own thing locally, sometimes statewide. There are not a lot of groups that actually get engaged with legislation per se.
Right.
But obviously, the Maine Federation of Humane Societies they just do a phenomenally good job, and not only of caring for and adopting out animals in Maine, but as you know, dogs from the south as well. So they very much provide a positive front to animal protection in Maine, because how good they are and what they do, and how many animals they handle.
And they're front line.
Yes.
They're seeing all of that.
Yeah.
I could tell you how it's changed so much. I was involved in this in 2006, and I can recall at that time what we called kitty season. This is just an example. What we called kitty season. You could walk through any of the shelters, and there was crates stacked up to the ceiling on both sides of the hallways, and there was so many. And just an example of how far we've come in spay-neuter programs. Not only, there used to be restrictions on income. There had to be income requirements set, and a lot of organizations out there have taken that away. There's opportunities out there to spay and neuter animals that weren't there before. Spay Maine has a lot of that information. So is there any other organizations that you'd like to mention? Or
Well, with the, it's kind of hard without leaving somebody out,
I
but
don't want to. There's just so many of them. Yeah.
well, what I'm saying is that it's morphed in this day and age in 25 years where there's a lot more people out there now readily engaged in this type of stuff. I mean, Maine Friends Animals has been doing it for 25 years, and we're more legislative focused, but other groups do different things, as the shelters do, and other animal protection groups do. They have their own mission, if you will.
Right.
But we're all in the same entity you know, ultimately what it is, the way I look at it, is trying to get people to view animals differently, and just think of how we interact with species and how we might want to change that thinking, and ultimately get into mainstream thinking. Like Dogs Chained for Life, you know, it took a while, but now everybody kind of knows what that term means because they've seen it themselves.
Yeah, it's a powerful message, and I think you've been really being out in the field. I really believe that most people want to do the right thing and do this education. There's so many different, they say, all these organizations that contribute to that.
Well, it is, you know, and education is so fundamental, especially in any early stage of the movement. So you got to educate the media, our members, the legislators, and common folk. He's just always putting those seeds of, you know, the things out there.
I like that, yeah, about planting seeds. That's,
Yeah. Well, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I forgot what I was going to get at. But
education.
yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah,
So
no.
the education and planting of seeds, you got to have that, and education begets advocacy. Advocacy begets, you know, public opinion changing, and then finally you get to the point now you can do legislation. But you've got to have, most of our major campaigns, they've been like 2 years. We do an education campaign for the legislators as well as the media to get them up to tune what this bill is before we put it out there. And then, you know, get the momentum going. And ultimately, that's how we get to legislation. But it all begins with education, especially, like I say, in the early stages of a movement.
Right, right. Is there anything right now that you're working on that you'd want to talk about, say 2 years from now? What's
Well, you know, two of those bills that I mentioned out of the four, we had passed in the House and the Senate in the previous administration. And I will say, too, that us getting these last four bills passed, in many ways, was a change in the political environment in Augusta.
Right.
Not only with the governor, but with the legislative makeup.
right?
We got those two bills that didn't get passed because they were vetoed, passed immediately because of that. So, and we definitely wanted to do the pet custody bill. So we don't have any. I mean, we've always got issues out there, but our legislative committee now in the summer begins to get together, and then we'll start with a whole bunch of bills, and we'll narrow them down, and we have criteria in terms of which ones we decide to ultimately
And
go
being
with.
this is an election year, everything else kind of goes to the side anyway, right? Or
Yeah. But,
like
well, we work with that as well because we send out a legislative questionnaire to all the candidates on both sides, independents, about 500 of them. We don't get a lot of them all back, but the ones we do get back often are people who are animal friendly. So we already know when we go up there for bills that this 30 or 40 group of people will work with this or sponsor or co-sponsor our bills.
right.
So yeah, we'll send that out actually in July just to get a feeling for, and we'll include some of the bills we think we might go forth with in that questionnaire to see what the response is.
Right.
And if there's a lot of them don't like it, then we'll figure we got to change it or not do it. But and vice versa, if we get a lot of response, we say, well, let's ratchet this one up more.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So I couldn't imagine, I only see one of you, so I can't imagine you do everything, right? I mean, so I would talk about volunteers, and
Yeah.
if someone's out there watching and said, wow, I'd like to volunteer for this organization, is there a typical task that they may perform, or is there
Well, we've got if you go to our website and go into volunteers, you'll see there's actually 7 different categories you can help with.
right?
But we're in an exciting time right now because for 25 years, I was the unpaid executive director. And recently, we've gotten some very substantial funding in, which allowed us to hire a new executive director and a new office manager. And I can't be more excited about having them on board because they've got the expertise and the experience to bring us to another level and to change our whole operational capacities. So for me, I'm sitting back more as president of the board. I'm also, as you know, a businessman, and I like to combine my business and nonprofit into help building the new office space for Maine Friends of Animals. So I want to put some time into that. But yes, volunteers are so key. There's so many things you can do. Just get on our website and then email us, and then we can start emailing back and seeing where you'd like to get involved, because we will be doing a lot more now that we do have a full-time executive director and office manager.
Right. Yeah. And so, for example, tabling events, you do these across the state? Or
I'm so glad you brought that up. That was one thing we did very well. We used to be all over the state, so we would go to fairs, political events. In fact, I'm going to the Democratic Convention in 2 weeks, but we go to fairs, any types of events, local events or whatever. And that was really how we got our word out in many ways. And of course, COVID killed that. And then,
Right.
So we just noticed this summer that we're starting to get more requests for summer events things. So that's going to be fun because you get out there, you know, kind of pound the flesh, see what people think about, and they tell you what they think. And like a good politician, you got to hear from your constituents to really know what to do.
Right. Yeah. That is truly grassroots.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. I've been able to experience some of it, and it's phenomenal what could be done. And you never know whose hand you're going to shake, who you're going to talk to, who you're going to pass that message on to, and what sort of impact they're going to have.
Well, let me tell you a story like that.
Sure.
We had this woman for 24 years. She sent us a check for $10, maybe $15. Nice little thing. She lived in Mexico, lived all by herself apparently.
Oh, interesting.
And we read December of 21, she's crossing the street up in Mexico and got ran over in her own town. And somebody mentioned that, and I said, oh, that makes checks about, because every year she'd send us $5, $10. Well, about 3 months later, and she wasn't a wealthy woman, she didn't have any children or whatever, but she apparently left her house to Maine Friends of Animals. And it gave us $250,000 of seed money. And we just so taken back. So you never know those seeds will pop. We never met her. And in fact, this summer I'm going to go up there and research more about her, and we want to do an article on her. But things like that, you never know. They can help make a difference.
It's so true. It's so true. I know, since I keep talking about myself, but since I've got into this business of the animal welfare, so many doors open for me that I don't even, it's just amazing.
Really?
With those types of things. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know whose hand you're going to shake.
No.
Our relationship, for example, I remember we may have met first time when they were passing the animal welfare plate up in Augusta.
Well, that was 2001.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been active in multiple ways.
Well, just saying, you know, about it is just the doors that open and the people you get to meet and the relationships. So your board, how's the board doing? Do you have still have 9 members? And
we don't have 9. We need 2 more, but we're good with what we're doing right now, especially because we'll build the board a little bit more, but right now we're just kind of adapting with this new executive director and office manager, because they're changing operationally. I was saying to Maggie, the operations girl, is that, you know, we're going from Ford to a Ferrari, and that's because Jane Delson, the new executive director, looked at it and says, we got to change how we operate. And we never had time to do that. But now you've got people on board that have that knowledge and know-how. That's just going to ratchet us up so much more that we can do more. So the board can be more like a board. Our board was a volunteer board, but it was like a volunteer board that was a paid staff, because everybody was doing so much, especially myself. But now the board can be like a regular board and not feel like they have to be doing paid staff work, which we all did.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that might mean to you personally, to be able to step it up.
Yeah, it does, and
this
especially being able to step away from the day-to-day operation of it, so I can look more at the big picture. And I'm just so excited what these two ladies are going to bring to the organization. And yeah, it is, and I know it's going to be just like the 207 interview I got. That was resultant of Jane going out there and reaching out and saying, "Do you realize they're #1 in the state? Do you realize they've been doing this for 25 years?" And bingo, she had an interview. We could have done that, but when you have an executive director, that's what they do.
Right. Right. Yeah. Many hands.
Yeah.
It takes to do that, and transitioning out of the COVA era, hopefully back here to normalcy. It's an adjustment as well.
It is.
So that's great that you got some good people. So we've covered it quite a lot today, but is there anything that you can think of that you would like to add we haven't talked about? Is there a direct message you would like to send to folks? Anything at all?
Gee, there's so much. I mean, if you really, and this being very simplistic, but if you really want to get involved, and if you go on our website and go under 25 ways one individual can make a difference for animals in Maine. Mm-hmm. And, it's just a nice little list of things you can do for Maine friends animals, but it could be foster a cat or work in a shelter and other things. But that would give you, if you just want to get involved, taking that sheet of 25 different ways that one individual can make a difference. And that's, again, I think under activism on our website, and you'll see it's right on the top now. But that would be a good start. And then, of course, in doing so, the number of those 25 things are ways you can get involved with Maine Friends of Animals as well.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, I know for me, personally, time management is probably one of my biggest obstacles, constantly trying to shuffle this thing around. And one thing I do, because I really can't volunteer so much at different places as much as I used to, but I give my animal welfare plate every year.
Yes.
So a few bucks goes to help, and it's something. So there are so many different ways.
Well, that again shows you how progressive Maine is. In fact, all these things like the check-off and the license plate that go to the Help Fix Me program for spay and neuter. You don't have a lot of states doing like we do that. So
yeah,
speaks well for all those involved.
Yeah, and the numbers are right up there. I can't remember what it is, but I think there's around 13,000 of those plates out now, maybe more.
Is there? Yeah.
I think so. It seems like my last number.
Well, I noticed the pie shape of the animal welfare budget, and that had a significant chunk there.
Yeah. So you mentioned that we're changing the captains here, so to speak. Animal welfare director has recently gotten done.
Yes, this is pretty interesting time. Liam's been there 10 years, and before him, Norma Worley was there for about 10 years. And that's when we changed the whole kind of tore the animal welfare program up by the roots and set up the Animal Welfare Advisory Council, which I think you're alluding to.
AWAC, yeah.
AWAC, and I actually wrote a piece in one of our newsletters about where is AWAC, because what it was originally set up to do was very effective to really get the animal welfare program, the agriculture department up to speed what they should be doing. But over the course of time, it got weeded down and other members got put it in. So the interests of the animal was not always there as it should be, because other people had financial interest in it, other of the members on that committee. Anyways, people left, and then the positions weren't filled, and the page did not fill a lot of them. So the committee, as you probably remember, pretty much came defunct. They weren't meeting and so forth. And then finally, the governor just kind of reconstituted AWAC, and there's only 2 vacancies on it now. But yes, it's back working full function, and one of our board members is on AWAC. Yeah, I'm encouraged, because it was really special up there, and I just saw it year after year kind of going down, and now I think with this new group, new administration, and a new animal welfare director, that AWAC could come back to be what it was.
Yeah, because they're kind of the liaison between the governor's office and...
the problem with AWAC is Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. It's an advisory. So it's advisory to primarily the Animal Welfare Director, but also the Agriculture Department.
I see.
Ultimately, because, as you know, animal welfare is under the Ag Department. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, let's hope for the best. We're on the right trajectory, I
We
think,
are.
anyway. Yeah.
As I say to folks who get so anxious, you know, the pendulum's swinging our way, albeit too slow, but it's swinging our way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, culturally in the state of Maine, we're in a pretty good place as far as, you know, regarding the treatment of animals. Overall, I find that most people are good people
Yeah.
and want to do the right thing, and it's a small percentage that really requires our due diligence and to continue to.
We'll have another show on wildlife issues.
Yeah, yeah, those are coming up. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of those.
Well, anyways, that's another whole
right,
ballgame.
okay. Hard to boil this down. I don't put you on the spot, but I'm going to. But
Go
after
for it.
25 years here, you find yourself today. What would you say is your biggest challenge within everything you do on a daily basis? What do you wake up in the mornings or anything? Or
Related to Maine Friends Animals.
yeah, sure.
Well, it probably sounds very mundane, but I'm innately an organizer. And as I mentioned, these issues are visceral, and people, you have animal welfare, you have animal protection, you have animal rights, and so in the movement you've got, you know, the conservative, the moderate, and the liberal, trying to keep them all happy and so forth. I think my biggest challenge has always been, just as executive director, just trying to keep everybody focused, understand there's going to be issues along the way. We're not going to all agree on things, but let's not point the guns inwards. Let's make sure we're all working the same vision. So I think over 25 years, that has probably been the biggest challenge, is just trying to keep, you know, especially early in a movement. You think about it. Animal protection movement really in many ways began with Pete Seeger's book back in 1977, Animal Liberation. So we've only been at this for like 50 years. And from where we are now, especially the last 25 years, you know, it's commendable, but for those who want to see things happen a little quicker, you just have to let them know it doesn't always happen that way.
Right. Well, Maine is a shining example, I think.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. On the other side of that, what's the biggest reward? What really gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling that you can just really go, wow, this is what it's all about?
You know, it's funny you say that, because a lot of the stuff you're doing is, you know, numbers and so forth. You're not out there like the shelters are on the front line, because you're doing other things. And you'll do some things, you work really hard on the bill and put time in it, and then it doesn't even get out of committee or it doesn't get passed, and you say, man, all the time and energy we put into that. And then next day I come to office, and a neighbor of mine will take me somewhere, and we'll find out that she got a dog chain for life released. And I just like, you know, that's why I do it. Every once in a while you get this situation where that one animal's life is going to change, and it makes it worthwhile. So yeah, I always have to look at the big picture, but I think it's the one-on-one situations with the animals, because you know they're sentient beings, and should be treated properly.
Inspiration, keep you going, huh?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, that's what's got you there in the first place, because, you know, you realize it was something that should never happen. My initial segue into animal protection, I think, was back in the 1970s, when there was only had 4 TV stations. We had the PBS, and PBS did a show on African elephants and how they were being slaughtered and so forth. But these were pictures, especially back in 1977, where the animals were being shot, and while they're still alive, they were taking chainsaws to their face to take the tusk out. The calves were running around terrorized, and I looked at that, and I just was up beyond myself. And I said, I can't believe in this day and age, because I knew what a social, intellectual, sentient being an elephant is. And I said, this can't be. And so that's when I bought Pete Seeger's book. I ended up being a member of the HSUS, and the rest is history. But that one issue put me on the path. Empathy
is one of the greatest gifts, I think, that we can have, and that we can pass on to our children. Yeah, it's a great thing.
Very well put.
Yeah. So Robert, it's so nice to see. I can't thank you enough. Robert Fisk, founder of Maine Friends of Animals. It's been a real pleasure catching up with you.
My pleasure as well. Thank you.
Yeah, you have open invitation. Come back anytime. Issues you want to hit on, things are moving along. Whatever you want to do, you're welcome to come back anytime. We'd love to have you. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. I
Well,
appreciate
you're
it.
kidding. Much appreciated.
Right.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for joining us on Mainly Animals on LRTV. We'll see you next time.